Today, Navy SEALs stand as living legends, the embodiment of strength, courage, and unwavering determination. Their stories of valor have been woven into modern folklore, participating in missions ranging from counterterrorism to humanitarian assistance.
Tonight, I can report to the American people and to the world that the United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden, the leader of Al-Qaeda.
These modern-day warriors face challenges that push the limits of human endurance, enduring relentless training, clandestine missions, and a brotherhood like no other. Against this modern backdrop, we return to the story of Eddie Ferguson, whose journey began in the segregated South of Fort Myers, Florida, nearly a lifetime ago. Little did he know that the Navy SEALs of today would be a reflection of his own unwavering determination, passion, and adaptability. In the midst of the Second World War, it had become painfully obvious that old warfare tactics needed to be updated. It would take more than just battleships to control the seas. Out of the need for a new type of warrior, the Navy frogmen were born. Navy frogmen is a term that was used to describe their predecessors to the modern-day Navy SEALs. During World War II, the Navy formed several specialized units, including the Naval Combat Demolition Units and the Underwater Demolition Teams, also known as UDTs, to conduct hydrographic reconnaissance and demolition operations. However, a house divided cannot stand. The U.S. military was desegregated by President Harry S. Truman in 1948 by Executive Order 9981.
There is no justifiable reason for discrimination because of ancestry, or religion, or race, or color.
But the country was still a long way from walking together in unity. A fractured fighting force could never effectively defend the nation.
One thing that's important to remember is that throughout World War II, the military was racially segregated. And that segregation really made no sense. It meant that the military had to do everything in duplicate. They had to have separate barracks, separate latrines, separate dining facilities. And it's someone's job to make sure all of those things remain separate. They went so far as to even segregate blood from blood donors in the Red Cross, even though there's no scientific basis to do that. It was a point of real frustration for Black Americans during World War II because they felt like their patriotism wasn't being respected. They were literally being treated as second-class citizens, even while they were fighting, and in some cases dying for their country. At the end of the war in 1945, the integration of the military is a huge deal. This is one of the things that civil rights activists have been fighting for since the late 1930s, and it remains a real hot-button issue at the end of the war. Finally, in 1948, President Truman signs Executive Order 9981, which officially desegregates the military. President Truman signs that executive order because he recognizes that Black voters are going to play an even more important role in terms of the future of the Democratic Party. So it's really a political calculus on President Truman's part.
Stateside, the early 60s were marked by an earth-shattering shift in the social fabric of the country. Civil rights challenges and social unrest threatened to tear the country apart. Racial segregation was deeply entrenched, and it was legal to keep Black people out of public schools, public transportation, restaurants, and other public facilities. Black people faced significant obstacles to voting, and many municipalities would go to great lengths to disenfranchise them. Police brutality was rampant, and the offending officers were rarely held accountable.
The reason Black Americans were overrepresented in the military is that the military presented a lot better economic opportunities than they could find in a lot of the civilian world. And even the specific kinds of work that Black troops signed up for was often determined by the rates of pay. So there were a number of instances where people said they signed up for special forces or signed up for being paratroopers because they would earn an extra $20 or $25 a month. It was the kind of economic determinants that you just didn't see for white troops in the same time period. So for someone like Eddie Ferguson, the fact that he was a frogman and really broke down barriers there was really important for the larger culture, that people could point to him and be able to say, this is someone who did it. He was one of the first people to blaze that trail. It was important in the larger Black military history.
And that's exactly what Eddie Ferguson did. Eddie's early years were marked by the racial divisions of his time.
I was born in 1944 in Jacksonville, Florida.
White folks section was segregated from the blacks by a railroad track.
So it was just racially divided. And that was the plan, you know, that we should be kept separate. If we went to on the other side, there were white people over there that might do bad things to black people. And so I never intermingled or even talked to white people growing up. They weren't painting white people as bad people, but they were. I had vision of being hung as a child or castrated or all that other stuff that was going on outside in Florida. Our schools were segregated as well. The only contact we had with white schools is that we would get their books, hand-me-down books in our schools.
Eddie's journey begins as a foster child.
We were under the custody of the state. We were like foster care. My foster mother, I would say, took advantage of that situation. She could make a salary by keeping us.
Eddie Ferguson. Oh, that's quite a memory. And Eddie, he was always kind of a unique guy, the Tarzan type, bodybuilding. We had a very small class, and it was, don't mess with Eddie.
Eddie's hope for a better life led him to join the United States Navy. The UDTs of the time laid the groundwork for a specialized force that would go on to operate in some of the world's most dangerous environments. Job opportunities for a young black man like Eddie were scarce, and he saw the Navy as his ticket to a brighter future.
I worked on a watermelon farm. So I would stand on the corner in the bottom, and a flatbed truck would come by and look for workers for that day. And so they would look at the people standing on the corner. If they looked healthy, strong, they would pick that person to get on the truck. And then we were headed for the watermelon field. I didn't take lunch. I didn't think about it. I didn't take hydration. I didn't take water. And I'm working in a watermelon field all day. I got school while I was on the watermelon field. You know, since I didn't have lunch, they say, well, you got to accidentally drop a watermelon, right? And then you can, instead of just kicking it aside, you would have the watermelon for lunch. And it was not a career. I was looking for a 20-year career somewhere. For some reason, I was attracted to the ocean, to the sea. I've seen it in National Geographics. I've seen it on Sea Hunt on TV. I was kind of drawn to adventure at sea. About the 11th grade, I went to see a recruiter downtown Fort Myers, and he wrote me up and put me in the system. And the first thing he wanted was my birth certificate to prove my age. He never got that birth certificate for various reasons. I didn't have one. But he went ahead and did his job of recruiting people into the Navy, and he managed to process me through by giving me a train ticket to Jacksonville, Florida, where I was inducted into the United States Navy. And when I arrived in Jacksonville, there was no taxis able to take me to the recruitings to the place where I was inducted. There weren't that many black taxi cab drivers either, and we got no respect from the white taxi drivers. So I had to walk everywhere I went once I got off the train. Those were the days of integration, segregation, whatever you want to call it.
As Eddie faced racial disparities on his journey entering the Navy, the UDTs were transforming into the Navy SEALs. During this turbulent time, Eddie's friend Lamont King, a dedicated Navy diver, faced his own battles against discrimination at a naval base. Lamont's experience shed light on the broader issue that echoed through the military, bringing to the forefront the need to change and promote unity among servicemen.
If you talk to anybody of color that is in this specialized community, we all have our unique stories. I was the first African-American to walk through the doors to be a diver. One of the first individuals I ran into says, "I've never had a nigger at dive school before." And I'm like, interesting. Now, the Chicago Lamont could have just beat the hell out of him, but I did not, because I was raised better than that. I know I can't be as good. I have to be better. I have to be smarter. This same individual that accosted me at that time ended up working for me years later. That is the power, that is the strength, that is the beauty of God, to allow us to make rights out of wrongs. And this individual, he was wrong at that time, but I was able to do that. He worked for me later on. Biases? Yeah, we've had a lot of biases throughout my career. Being a first, walking into a wardroom, you're not expected to be there. Walking into a meeting, you're not expected to be that subject matter expert.
I couldn't fight my way through all those personnel on board the ship, so my exit was when a recruiter came by and introduced a program called Someone Special, which was a video of Someone Special, which was a Naval Special Warfare UDT SEAL program. And so I heard the announcement, so I reported to the mess deck at 1300, and out of a company, of a ship's company of 600, I was the only one to show up on the mess deck.
He heard about SEALs, Eddie jumped and says, "I want to be a SEAL." Well, guess what? He didn't even know how to swim.
Eddie's determination led him to the Navy UDT SEALs team, a force that continued to evolve and adapt. Eddie's rigorous training was a challenging environment in which the units prepared for their missions.
I had a particular challenge doing training on the underwater swim. I was to step in the water on the deep end, remain underwater, do not break the surface of the water, and I was to swim 50 yards underwater, headed toward the shallow end, turn around underwater, come back toward the deep end. Before I knew it, I really didn't know it, I had passed out. So one of my instructors jumped in the water, grabbed a hold of me, pulled me up to the surface. I was told to sit on the pool side, and they announced that I had to repeat the swim because I didn't pass. But before I did it the second time, for some reason, the instructors wanted me to inhale water from a face mask. And so I reached down in the pool, filled my face mask full of water, put it on my face, got a suction on the mask, and they told me to make the water disappear. I leaned my head back a little bit, I relaxed somewhat, and I commenced to inhale water from the mask through my sinus, and it went down my esophagus and into my stomach. The entire face mask was empty, and so I accomplished that. After that, they told me I would have to do the underwater swim again. And so the same thing I did. I took a couple of breaths, I stepped into the deep end, pushed off, headed for the shallow end, just like I did before, and turned around underwater, headed back for the deep end again. It was that same 9 feet from the wall, I had nothing left to the point where I passed out the second time. They pulled me out of the water again, set me on the pool side, and after that evolution, I was taken to Boone's Clinic to see a doctor. I was given a neuro, and they would tell the instructor what problem was I having during that time. They announced to the instructors that I had no problem, and they insinuated I didn't have sense enough to surface. I knew if I had surfaced, I would have failed, and that is the very reason why I didn't surface. So it was, I had to do it, and I don't want to say die, but I had to get it done, and I wasn't going to give up.
As we move back to the roots of Eddie's journey, Eddie and his comrades overcome countless challenges, reaching a point of no return, a place where they become true UDT SEALs. The challenges they face tested their determination and unity.
The kicker of UDT SEAL training was going through Hell Week.
Hell Week was usually the third week of training. All the hell that they can think of, put it in a 1 week so that they try to make us sweat. They make us miserable, you know, we were soaking wet and cold and freezing. They make you roll into the sand so you're wet and you have sand all over the place. Everywhere we went, we had those boats on our heads. We had to carry them everywhere we went. And of course, one of the places that we had to walk through, it's called the mud flats.
It's a quagmire. It's an area where there's mud, and we would go through that. It's almost like quicksand where your feet sink down in the mud, but you got to keep going through it no matter what. And my boot came off. It's 32 degrees, and I'm running with one boot back to the command. The instructor asked me if I knew that I only had one boot, and I responded, yes, instructor. My foot was frozen, so I didn't feel anything anyway. So he was looking to me to see if I wanted to ride back to the command or to the barracks. So I couldn't do that. I couldn't volunteer to get in the vehicle to ride back, so I continued to run with one boot. I hung in there, and I was not one of the ones that rang the bell. If you ring the bell, that's saying you want to quit.
As the UDT SEAL Brotherhood solidified, an unspoken understanding of duty prevailed. Yet in the shadows, a narrative unfolded. The enigma of Eddie Childress, a fellow African-American SEAL, chose a divergent course, stepping away from the elite ranks to join the Black Panthers.
Eddie Childress and I were the 2 of the 4 African Americans to finish training. There were 36 of us total that made it through, and we were divided into the 2 teams. Some of us went for advanced training to UDT 21. Eddie Childress went over to UDT 22. And some of my classmates went to SEAL Team 2. That's what the instructors felt like doing. They wanted to put one black in 21 and another black in 22. They had already decided to do it that way. Eddie Childress was not getting along with some of the people at 22 because they kind of had the attitude against black folks as well. Eddie Childress decided that he did not want to pursue a career, so I stayed with UDT 21 for the next 18 years. Eddie Childress got out after about 4 years, and he went back to Chicago, Illinois. Because he was getting along that badly at 22, some of my teammates didn't want to even consider him after he got out, he got in trouble. They wanted to forget him. But when I detected that, I started looking up his history, where he was from, found out he was interred or buried in Veteran Cemetery in Chicago. And he passed away on a subway train from a drug overdose. So I believe that he somehow got hooked up with the Black Panthers He started doing drugs, alcohol or whatever, and so he actually just messed himself up pretty bad. He did complete training with me, and so I had to track him and make sure they did not forget him, regardless of where he went or what he did.
The departure of Eddie Childress marked more than just a physical exit. It was a solid declaration against injustice, leaving an indelible mark on the fabric of the UDT SEAL journey. Amid the triumphs, there were those who questioned Eddie's mettle. Rumors circulated that he closed his eyes during airborne jumps.
So when a billet came available for free fall, it was at the Halo Committee in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I volunteered for that free fall class, and I went through. Once I finished, I had 20 free falls. Guaranteed my eyes were open because we have to see where we're at in the air. We have to have air awareness, and we have to watch our altimeter. So I didn't have to prove it to this guy, but I went ahead and went through free fall committee anyway. Years later, there was a parachute team called the Shooting Stars. And being on the parachuting team, I was relieved by Master Chief Goins. I don't think many people know that, but they were looking for diversity. They were looking for African Americans to be on the parachute team. And I was one of the first ones to go on to the Navy Parachute Team East.
Eddie's journey was not only about becoming a UDT SEAL, it was about building a family. He married the woman he loved, creating a life of love and dedication.
I met Eddie in Norfolk in 1966, I believe. I was staying with my mother, and he came over one evening with a friend of my mother. People usually came around to play cards or whatever. It was kind of fun going to my mom's house. Everybody kind of congregated to come over there and have some fun. And I guess Eddie heard about it through his friend and decided to come with him one day. He did come. He came over again and he started talking to me. And then he told me that he liked me. Then we kind of hit it off, talking and everything. And
so we just continued to date for a number of years. In fact, we dated for 5 years. And one day we decided to, that's after I settled down, we decided to be a family.
So every time Eddie had to go out to sea, that's where I would head, over my mom's house. And we would go over there, and that would make me feel better, make me feel a little bit comfortable because he was gone. It was kind of hard from the beginning because we didn't get a lot of income at that time. So I had to make everything count as far as feeding the kids and taking care of the home.
In Eddie's well-deserved retirement, he continues to live life to the fullest. He enjoys the freedom of the open road, riding his motorcycle, and even amazing folks with his unicycling skills. His visits to the UDT Navy SEAL Museum are moments of reflection and inspiration.
This is my class right here. All the way down to here. And yeah, that's me right there.
Wow, what's that? Who's that guy?
Who's that guy? Still kicking.
In the memory of SEALs that passed on, we are reminded that heroes are not confined to the battlefield, but can also be found in the resilience of an ordinary life. In every trial, there is an opportunity for greatness. Embrace the challenges and you'll discover the hero within. Eddie's heroism, born from an ordinary world filled with adversity, has left a lasting legacy for future generations. Eddie's journey continues, reminding us that heroes are not born, but forged through life's most challenging trials.
Yesterday, the only easy day was yesterday. All my dreams are trying to fade away, but I believe I'll make my way painfully. This might color out the
trials and tribulations, never feeling right. How I'm fighting for my country and we still trying to divide. Tammy said we multiply like cattle, but we fighting your battle. Stuck under all the challenges tackled. Rare recognition when they got you up on them shackles. Only recognition brother get is when they be dying. That's a lie, cause most of us is really forgotten. Only seeing me and seeing me, you challenge beside it. Navy blue, singing blue, leave you clueless, now I'm cracking. Pull up in a sub like a crib, what's cracking? Take 'em out, take 'em down, underwater.